So we will start the panel discussion with the panelists' views on what their perceptions of brand are. Is brand as a concept pretty much restricted to the biggies, or is it something that is applicable to any entrepreneur? Before we go there, how many of you can be called startups the first 3 years of your existence? So that's a good mix. How many of you have been an entrepreneur for more than 5 years? All right. So good mix of both. So I will set the ball rolling with Hemu giving her views on brand, its relevance to startups.
Actually, I think start by saying what is a brand and what does it mean to a person who doesn't know it. It's really a promise of delivery of either product or service in a consistent manner of great quality. Now, producing that brand, producing that one service, I don't think is difficult to do. Maintain it consistently over a period of decades, long after you have gone. I think that's what the brand needs to be. And when I set a brand out, that's exactly what I wanted to do. So to the entrepreneur, it's all a question of how do you want to promote your brand. There are two ways you can do it. People do it differently. One is you promote yourself, you become magnified, so people know your brand and connect you to that. But that's not the approach I took, and that's not the approach I wanted to take. So I wanted the brand to live on. So if you see the series of interviews, because we actually didn't have money to do any promotions when we started. I started the brand in 1987. So over a period of time, all the interviews I gave, all the photographs I played, and all the articles were very carefully planned. Every photograph would be a photograph of a store, not of mine. People would say, can I have a picture of yours? It's irrelevant to the brand. So the moment you say the brand is all important, everybody who walks below, including you, who's the entrepreneur, is not relevant. Then you're already setting the path is what I think to enduring longevity, enduring perpetuity of a brand, which is all something that you want to do. I don't think any entrepreneur started a brand saying, let me make money for 5 years and brand. I mean, maybe in certain industries people do that. Serial entrepreneurs do that. They set up selling. But you still want the brand to have some meaning because that's where you have some value.
My view on branding is a little bit different. My analogy to a brand is a baby. So in the initial, first couple of years, or right after the founder starts a certain company or starts a brand, the brand really needs the identity, the thought process, the philosophy of the founder in order to make that brand what it is. So very much like an infant, the brand is looking to the founder for all of that, for its own identity. But over time, I think the brand starts getting an existence of its own, because in that first few years, what the founders have been able to do is build that brand by consistently keeping the promise of that brand. Every founder starts a company because you want to deliver a service, you want to deliver a promise. And by consistently maintaining that promise, by striving to reach excellence in giving customers or giving your stakeholders that promise, you start creating what is a brand, which is an identity in itself. My thoughts are slightly different from Nemo for the only reason that I think today I started a company 5 years ago, and I started without any capital. I was looking to outside investors for capital, and the minute you start going to outside investors for capital to build your brand or build your company, they start looking to the credibility of the founders. They start looking to the credibility of the people. The brand doesn't mean anything to them. And therefore, I think it's inevitable today for those companies that look for funding in order to grow, initially, at least in the initial stages, that the founder's credibility, the founder's vision, the passion for the brand is so important until a time where you reach the critical mass where the brand can stand on its own. But essentially, the brand is a promise, and it's up to the people who run that brand, to the founders, to deliver that promise consistently.
I think there was views on this, but no question that that particular brand stands for the company, and its visibility becomes and credibility becomes important for several reasons, and that's something I wanted to ask. What is the objective, end game of creating this brand? Is it to attract, market pull, bring customers to you?
When I started, it was, I wanted to just do Chennai stores. I didn't have a vision of all India at that moment. So I wanted to do large format stores. I wanted to do air-conditioned, multi-product stores. It is very different from what other people were doing, and such a format didn't exist in India. But at the same time, I wasn't looking for investment at that point of time. I wasn't looking to sell the business. So very clearly, it was to set a process that would allow the brand to scale up. Because in the process of scaling up, the two things happen. One is you grow your brand within the city where you are an entrepreneur, where you started first, and then you move it to other shores. And in India, that is a complex process, because in Chennai, you're used to a particular set of network, you're used to a set of people, you have infrastructure to help you, and you have contacts, and the languages come in. The moment I took my first store out of Chennai into Bangalore, everything is different. The taxes are different, the sales tax is different, the checkpoints are different. So it's it's completely different. Every city you go, it's different. So the scaling up is what one looks at, and you're setting a process that allows you and allows your team, which you're slowly building under you, to do the jobs that you did as well as you, but following process. There is a certain amount of entrepreneurship that your team also gets when you empower them to do so. It's very difficult to get 5 people to think the way you think, but the moment you have a process guiding them, your philosophy, then it makes it easier. So for me, from the brand perspective, that is the stage, that's the second stage of what I did. Set a really good team in place who could take it to, maybe take the store maybe to Lucknow or Gurgaon or Ahmedabad or Baroda, and set up an equally good store, equally good merchandise, equally good service. Of course we traveled, but you can't be 18 places in one shop. So setting process, I think, is a very important thing. It needs to be a reflection of what you do. It needs to connect in the minds of people that, these are the guys, oh yeah, they're the ones who do that. And then it needs to indicate what you do in some way. And then you build.
Srini, just wanted to pick your brain. When she talked about the naming, I think there's an interesting story behind Lister. So can you just share that as to how you arrived at that name?
Well, I think it's time the other panelists retire with Hemu sitting at the holding the first mic. Well, I think I concur with her before I get into the name situation. Yes, we were in 80s. Lister was started in 1985, from which I quit in 2006. We never had the luxury of the funding. We need to borrow at 19 or 20%. Borrowing was not easy from the banks. That's the second story. But despite, and we didn't have the www, we didn't have the mobile phones, we didn't have the text messaging. Well, I think that's probably a blessing in disguise for all of us, because we knew our customers probably by first name, who were walked in and walked out for a lot of time. So I entirely agree with her that the systems need to be in place. The best thing an entrepreneur can do, all of us have to exit at some point of time. Exit at your 50, I wanted to retire at 50. Or it is some... Pardon?
You are not in 50.
Me? Oh, thank you. I wish my wife hears that. Okay. And the second thing, all of us are going to exit at either at some point, or the question of at 5 years, 6 years. And today, unfortunately, a lot of people start something, as Balu was saying, that we want to exit in 6 years, become a millionaire and start looking at something else, or retire and be under the tree. So for us, it is something we wanted to do in life. We started and we went on. Well, probably I will come back to it later on in some other question. To answer the question of Lister, when we did not have any of these things, we needed a name for the organization. Now, how did we do it? Correctly said that it has to reflect something on what you are going to do, and people should be able to recall the name and associate. Even after 10 years of coming out of the thing, 80% of my friends from the 80s, I don't know what Hemu has done, still have my name as Lister Srini. So I have dropped that in from all my vocabulary, like getting an umbilical cord. Now the thing is that we went back to about 15 people, gave them 15 friends and gave them 5 names. We did First we did the market research to understand what the doctors are looking for. So around 115, finally only 17 started using the facility. That's a different issue. And when we gave 5 names to 15 people and then called them back after 10 days for a dinner, all friends, out of the 15, 14 came up with one name, Lister. Lister was one of the 5 names that was given. The 2 Sanskrit names, 1 Tamil name, and something else was there. I don't even remember. I don't even recall. And when we asked them why they picked up, why 14 of them said one name, all of them said it's an association. Association is what? Listerine mouthwash was something which is very prominent, and it's come back now when I see that 2012-13. The ability to recall a name made a lot of difference. That's how the name Lister came into the picture.
The short story of Amelia was, this was literally 8 hours before we were to go present the business plan in front of the judges, and we had everything except the name. So we just, in our sleep-deprived state, tried to brainstorm, and we said, what are we doing? We are ameliorating the situation of working moms. And we said, cut it, make it Amelia, move on, go to the business plan. That's how it happened.
Another thing which is relevant to a lot of us here is, the concept of legally protecting the, brand, whether it's the copyright, trademark, watermark, whatever you call it. How important is it that, and when, at what stage did you actually start doing it? Even before naming the company, or was it afterwards, or were you simply not aware of it? And later on somebody told you, and you went ahead and did that. So a quick response from all 3 of you.
To be very honest, at the first venture, I had no idea about copyright, protecting the name and all those things. But I can tell you a very interesting story after we started the Jeevan Blood Bank. I was in one of those meetings, it's the meeting of the Indian Society of Blood Transfusion, Tamil Nadu chapter. And about 20 or 30 people were sitting, and one of them during the meeting got really agitated and started talking. I'm from such and such place. You people said so many things about Jeevan Blood Bank. In fact, they offered us a fan, 3 ceiling fans and 4 ever-silver tiffin carriers for organizers of the camp. And he hasn't seen me. I haven't seen him. I'm in the audience. There are people looking at me whom they know. And finally, after everything is finished, and they said, one of the friends said, Swami, would you like to answer that question? And that man said, no, I have not seen him in that blood donation camp. I said, exactly. We did not do your blood donation camp. What had happened was, there was another blood bank which had the Jeevan as part of their name. 3 letters in front, Jeevan, and then probably 1 letter at the end. So, for the sake of, by the time we were credible force, and the first 3 letters and last 1 letters were 12 font, and this was 23 font. So I think it is important that you get into the copyright, that I could figure out because I asked him the photograph. He has come with the photograph to fight. So I showed him, this is what the photograph is, just see the backdrop. Then he apologized, that's a different thing. I think it's absolutely important that if you have a name, I think you need to sort of protect in today's scenario.
I think I completely agree. The brand name protection is really nothing. Registering it costs you nothing. But it's a process that needs to be done. It's the first thing you need to do, because I think crores and crores and crores have been spent on people buying brands and buying names. And just to give an example of how important the brand name is, in association with the product you sell. My niece just started a company in Bangalore and actually paid, it's a startup, it's an online company that sells jewelry, but actually paid 25 lakhs to buy a name which was just a defunct name. It was on the thing, but she wanted it. So she actually paid 25 lakhs to buy the brand, and they've just gone into their 3rd round of funding. So just to understand how important the brand name is and how important it is to register, because once the name is registered online and the website's gone, the space is blocked forever for you. So you need to do it so that you take care of it when you decide to go online, when you decide to use that, the name is there and existent for you. It's really important.
So I think I agree with both of you in terms of saying, you need to do what you need to do in terms of having your brand, protecting it in terms of trademark and copyright and all of that. However, when you are startups, there's really not much that you can do if someone else either decides to take your, your design, your font, or try to do something like somebody else did to you. The country, the systems of law, all of that don't offer you enough protection quickly enough. As a business, you need solutions now. If someone's threatening your brand now, you need solutions in the next couple of months. You can't wait 10 years and keep paying lawyer fees for the next 10 years to go to court for this. So to that extent, while all this paperwork is essential just because it sets you up as a professional organization, investors, stakeholders start taking you more seriously, I don't think it offers you protection in the law to the efficiency that you actually need, especially in the initial years. So the only way I think you can protect your brand is to deliver your promise, is to keep at delivering your promise. We run a childcare center. Our promise is to ensure that children are well taken care of. We offer an excellent curriculum. Children are very, very well prepared for the later years, and we consistently deliver that promise. We put ourselves out there and we ensure, and that is the only way you can do it, because that is the hardest thing for a competitor to replicate. It's very easy to go to a digital studio. There are people who do it for lower and lower prices these days. It's so easy to replicate a logo, so easy to replicate a design, look and feel, but it's so hard to remain consistent and so hard to operationally keep that effectiveness going. So I think while all these things are important, as startups or as businesses, your focus needs to be on building the brand and keeping your customers happy and delivering on your promises.
I just have one thing to say on the name itself. There are two ways you can do it. One is use a generic word, like I did. I used the word landmark, but you can't really copyright landmark so easily. So you can copyright a logo or anything or a type style or that goes with it, but you can't really copyright the name. Whereas if you have a unique name with unique spelling, then that becomes uniquely yours. So in our case, since the name was generic and a common word in the English dictionary, we would file. Actually, we had a person on retainer to just do this, because they have an alert system for all the people who are filing names for registration. I think I would have filed over the last 20 years at least a dozen objections a year and sent legal notices. It just became routine. Companies applying for name, landmark this, landmark that. We would keep saying it. Not in our space. You wouldn't be anything else but not in our space. At least 12 a year, consistently over 20 years, is something we have filed. So just give you an idea of how important it is to at least have that protection. We could do it because our patent lawyer would keep on sending these notices out. In fact, we wouldn't even know. We just get the bill and we would get an attachment of what they're objecting to, and we say, okay, fine, and we would sign it.
So you heard the panelists talk about how they build the brand. The two clear messages come. You don't really have to break a bank to create a brand, but you need to probably consistently work at making that brand meaningful in the eyes of the consumer. That means it has to stand for something. It has to stand for credibility. It has to stand for the promise that you've been delivering, and so on. So I think, while I have a few other questions, but I think this is a good time to go across to the audience. If any of you have specific questions, you can even point to the specific panelists if you want, or a generic. Yeah, please go ahead.
My question is piggybacking on a bigger brand. We provide analytics for IT and IT services suggested in private beta. When we started validating our idea, a lot of friends and people that we know told us, Srinath, it's a good deceptive pain point, and we would really like to buy your service, but you're a known brand. How would we get in through our IT? So last week we got into the IBM Global Entrepreneur Program. We are also selected to the IBM Software Catalyst Program. So my question is, should we maximize the IBM brand from that perspective? Because that gives us much more
Right. I'll answer the question mainly because I think you have a problem similar to what we underwent. Please sit down. I told, I think Raghu was talking about, we built an enterprise class platform called Core. And we were clear, I think like Raju was saying, we were clear that we were not going to sell it to the lower end of the market and have the market brand us as a SME player. So we knew it was like climbing Mount Everest. but we wanted to sell this product, enterprise class product, to the tier 1 customer. And the difference in terms of yield is not comparable. At the lower end, you'll probably get paid about $8,000 or $10,000 a year in a SaaS model for a solution. At the higher end, our solution can be sold at $8 or $10 million for a single installation. That's the difference. So it makes business sense to focus on that, but it's also the most difficult. So one of the things we did was to address that market through partnerships. And we spoke to a few of them, and Cognizant saw value in our product. So they've become an implementation partner. And we actually, in a lot of these tier 1 companies, which otherwise will not look at a small player, Cognizant brings us that credibility. So that's one way. I think piggybacking is, I would say, go with partnerships rather than leveraging just a similar name or something like that. That's my view, but please, anybody else has a response?
Yeah, I would say piggyback. I mean, where's the issue? Because there's a name that people recognize, whether you partner or whether you just have them as client and you can give one client reference. That's all that people need to set you apart and to give you an order. Because it's the first question all of us ask. I mean, if you're a startup, fine, okay. I know product looks good, but give me client list, give me reference. So if you have one good name on that client list, even if you don't have a client list, you just have one good name and you have one good reference, one person who speaks for your brand from that organization, that's all you need. I mean, it's your set-off, gets you going.
I think what you might be worried about is the fact that your brand may not speak as loud as the bigger brand, which is IBM, and what you may be worried about is that your brand gets lost in the shadow of a larger brand. But I think that's not something you need to worry about, because most startups, most companies start on references. So you need to keep it very clear that they are your references, that's your initial support, but keep your brand alive as well with your consumers, and I think you'll be able to make that balance.
Hi, my name is Sunil. We have founded MyAndaman.com, which is basically a tool company for Andaman Nicobar Islands. So when we started this company, even for the name, as I wanted to create the base for the brand initially, so I was thinking what name could be kept. So one day, like while riding the bike, I got the simple name, My Andaman. It was simple, and we have decided about the caption or the slogan. Then I got the name Dive into the Blue and Come Out Green. Dive into the blue and come out green, because Andaman is about the sea and greenery. So that name I thought, and the explanation that could be like people are running away from the Monday's blues, going to office, especially the sleep people. So I told them, you come dive into the blue and come out as green. What I requested green as the meaning of freshness. But recently, when I was visiting one place, some people pointed me out that the green means in English side, Europe side, they have different meaning also. When you are loose, so people say, when like you go 2-3 times toilet, you say, what happened? Oh, I'm going green, yaar. They given me this explanation. Must be they maybe good English. So my thing is that I had given a meaning to this thing. Now somebody is pointing, and he was the one man in 3-4 years. I got this feedback. Should I consider that kind of because in other side of the world, there's maybe different meaning of this. Should I reconsider the name, or I should keep going this thing?
You should absolutely consider if you want to keep your brand alive. Only because you're online, and the online space just integrates the entire world. So you can't say my geographic customer base is only so much, or is I don't cater to these or that geography of people at all. I think the World Wide Web literally brings the whole world, very, very tightly knit. Which means that you need to factor all of these in. I mean, lots of companies have very, very similar problems. Coca-Cola had a very similar problem when they moved to China. A lot of errors happen in translation, in the meanings of things, which is why it requires a lot of time and thought into creating phrases or into even building the brand name. So you will definitely need to consider.
I just thought of something amusing happened with reference to the brand and thing. I agree with her in terms of, because today you are global, you are not Chennai based or Chennai customers. That's one part. How many of you heard of, I think it was the HUL thing when they decided to go into Middle East about their washing powder advertisements. Because this, like your name, the advertisements also has to change, understanding the sort of perceptions of people in the different terrain. I believe, I think somewhere in 80s or something, they decided to go into the Middle East. What is normally said is you take a dirty cloth and you show the powder, and then after that you put the cloth which is clean. That is the ad which went to sell the product. But unfortunately, they read from right to left. There is an absolute catastrophe that happened. I think this is there in Krishna Kumar's book, if I'm right. It's worth reading because what you are saying in the World Wide Web and your perception for different regions makes a lot of sense.
So, any other question?
Hi, I'm Ashif Abdul. I own the brand Koyaka. So
Koyaka?
Yeah, Koyaka, the fruit guava.
Yeah.
So
Koyaka is Goa. Yeah.
So I like the fruit so much, so I named it like Koyaka, and and as I develop apps for iPhone and iPad, it's a global market. So usually I'll get emails like what is Koyaka and everything. So the thing is, like, Samsung is a word which came from Korea and it's so popular now. So how do you comment on the name, like, which we take it from a traditional word like Koyaka? And I also named it so unique that even if we write in Koyaka, it won't come like that. So what do you comment on that word? Can we name like from a Tamil word or a translation word, which because my audience are global?
End of the day is the recall, as I said. Somebody has to come up. Maybe you tell them 10 times Koyaka. I think Kaisara is the imaging company. We have difficulty in telling them. Personally, I don't see anything negative in the name. I'm sure one day you will be global.
My only thing is, I think, brand names need to be short, they need to be simple, they need to be easy to recall, just like Srini said. Just because you're into developing apps, you're on the internet, nowadays it becomes very important also that you keep your spellings very clear. So if I'm saying a word to you, you should be able to very quickly interpret the spelling and invariably get it right. If not, you need to do all of the back end that ensures that even the wrong spellings sort of take you to your site. You know what I mean? So I think as long as we do that, and the words are simple, I think it's great to take words from our own roots and put it out there, just because otherwise it's such an overkill of the commonplace names and you tend to get confused with the already existing brand names.
Related to this, there are a lot of these online businesses now, right? Which are businesses predominantly online. How important is offline promotion or media advertising or whatever? Let's say, I think Quicker and IBGO did a lot of advertising during cricket matches. So how important is promoting online businesses offline? Hemu, you've done both. So some perspectives on that.
The amount we spent on publicity in our 25 years would not be even their startup costs. So I don't think I'm the right one to answer that. But I think you should do more online for an online business. I'm not quite sure whether, because the spend that you do, like Flipkart did, their first round of funding, I mean, everything they spent on the series of TV ads, I'm not quite sure whether, if it was my company, I would spend so many crores on that. Yes, they built brand, but the amount of money that you're earning and you're still not making any profits, at some point you need to balance those two necessities. Build brand, social media is much cheaper than doing advertising, because that just is there and it's gone, and it's on multiple media, you're on TV and print. Doesn't last you a few seconds, it's just gone. I think it's a waste of money. I would really do, for an online business, I would do more online marketing. Anyway, on that space.
I think, Hemu, I'm going to differ slightly from you. I think from whatever the statistics that have gone and publications that have come on the online business, if you're targeting the tier 2, tier 3 cities, apparently that's where the growing money power is there. Dubai, and that's what I think people were exposed to new brands online. They go and spend their money. How many of them literally sit there in social media in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? And I think while online is one way of going, there has to be an offline to, let's say, a 1/3, 2/3 or 50/50 in the sense. And advertising in, let's say, magazines and periodicals have more value, including you end up seeing a 2-month-old magazine in your barber shop when you sit there for half an hour. But in the newspaper, it probably lasts about 10 seconds or 15 seconds when you flip through, and subsequently it's out. I think the judicious spending on online and offline on papers which are going to last longer, not just one day, I think will make a lot of difference, even if it's an online business.
I feel that it's important about understanding the kind of business you're in. If you are in an online business and you're expecting that your customers transact online, it's very important that you go behind those consumers who are ready to transact online. And those people would invariably be people who are very comfortable with the internet, who are very comfortable navigating the internet, who spend considerable amount of their day online. And therefore, when you're doing that, and when you're a startup, you're trying to build your business, you're trying to build your consumers, it's a wasted resource to go to offline, offline media in order to get these consumers who are already online for you. So half the battle is won. They are there, they're ready to be targeted. All you need to do is just put your ads in the right places where they go, and then you'll get those consumers. The minute you get saturated, or you've gone through that entire process and you're still looking to expand the market, you're trying to get people to move into the online segment for the first time. So you're not just advertising your product, you're actually encouraging people to shift ways of behavior into an online way of behavior. That's when I think you'll need to use offline media. So you're doing a lot more than just advertising your brand. You're encouraging people to move into an online system. So they're two very, very different things, and I think for most of us to get there is going to be a long way off. So initially you're just looking at your first consumers, you're looking at building your brand, you're looking at building your business, and I think the most efficient way to do it is to go online.
I think one other parameter is whether it's, like you said, B2B or you're looking at the mass consumer. That will also determine how much of visibility you need.
Just to add that, going back to what Emo said earlier, in my first venture, there was not a single advertisement which was released, not a single brochure that was printed. I'm talking about 85. The first marketing flyer or a brochure was printed in 2005 when it was taken over by Metropolis. Until that time, we never had a marketing team. I think it's applied to you also, because I've been one of those frequent visitors to Landmark. And there was no flyers, no advertisements, because we didn't have budget, we didn't have money, it's so expensive. The only thing you can do is the print. But how did we build our brand without all these things? You may say it's a generation gap, that's a different thing. It's a question of coming to her statement, you deliver what you promised to deliver. And if you go by one of those advertisements, which I love, and I saw that in 80s in Bombay, deliver more than what you promised. This is one of Raymond's advertisements which used to be there in Zugu on the beach. Several of them, the huge ones. So once you deliver what you promised to deliver and you differentiate yourself from your competitors, I think you have the repeat customers, you start building. On that you do whatever you want to do out of your profit. Don't borrow and spend on advertisements and brand building.
We are at 11:57, time for one last question if there is one. Yes.
Hi. My question is to Pedro. I just wanted to know when it comes to your company, when it was small, then it went to medium, and then when it went large. At each of these stages, what did you exactly do in terms of brand building? What were your mistakes? And to all the panelists, the common question is, what were the mistakes in the brand building, if any, that you had actually done?
I'll try and make that quick. When we were small, we had no money to advertise. So our first store was in Chennai. But what we did is we said, let's reach out to the people who are going to be our customers or who we thought were our possible customers. So we did community building. We went to every school and we sponsored every quiz, every literary debate, anything that was related to books, learning, knowledge, reading, anything. We sponsored everything. Those are really cheap sponsorships, but you're there in the school because we believe that that was a generation that will come to us.
They would drive their parents to come to us because even in those days, you'd be surprised how many kids had never ever been to a bookshop because their parents just didn't take them. It was not part of their outing. If they went out, they would go for a movie, or they would go to the beach, or they would go out to eat. But they never went to a bookstore as a leisure activity or something you could take your kids. So we built community massively in the early stage. As I said, every school, every college, every debate, we started the landmark quiz, which was in music, and it cost us nothing. But it was huge. We went to all the clubs and all. Then we went to the mid-level, and then again we still didn't have money to advertise. Then what we did is we went for a different target audience, which was the banks, the client base of banks. We tied up with American Express, we tied up with Citibank. We did promotions with them. So we said, okay, you've got 3.6 lakh silver card holders, give us this, and we'll give your clients this in return. You've got 1.8 lakh platinum card holders, give us this, we'll give you this. All our marketing, anything to build brand, was done through this, because we believe that if you didn't even have a credit card, you would be an outsider that would come in. So we targeted different databases across all these kind of places, and we marketed to them. We did promotions, we did offers, we did all kinds of things, but we never discounted. The brand never discounted, so we maintained that. But we were the only people, and that's another reason why we started Western Books, because that was a great brand differentiator. One of the landmark changes that happened. We opened accounts in every brand. It cost us money to open Western, but we opened accounts, direct accounts in every publishing company in the world, literally, all the major players, and we started direct imports. We were the only people who would take a customer order for one single book and not charge you a US-India freight on it. And in 21 days you would get your books. So that service element that built brand and built community was so huge. And then we moved to a mall. The next step we did again, big game changer, was when we opened our Spencer Plaza store, which was a failing mall. It was, they were not able to fill the mall, and so they kept coming to us and saying open, and that's 2 kilometers down the road. And I think this, everyone knows, we were poised for investment at that moment of time, and we had actually almost closed the deal. And for 1 year I've been going to Spencer Plaza every Saturday, every Sunday, sitting over there in the corridor, in the atrium. I used to sit there for a couple of hours, just see the customer base. It was so different from what came to my store in Numabakam. And I said, look, this is the future. There were no malls in India. I think Spencer's was quite an example. So having decided that, I actually did the numbers with Spencer's, and the rentals didn't work out for me, because at the end of 9 years I was literally doubling my rent and the economics didn't work. So we bought the space. For the first time in my life I borrowed money. Went to a bank, hopped my house. I mean, you would have seen that coming. It was a very traumatic period, because I come from a generation where we were taught never to borrow. There's no question of EMI for a phone or EMI for a TV. We had the money, we spent it. We don't have to just do without. So we actually borrowed, and at that point the pre-investor who was putting money to us said, boss, this is a 40,000 square feet store, 2 kilometers from your existing store. If you're going to do that, then we're walking out. So make up your mind tomorrow 10 o'clock. Either you scrap that and you go with us, we'll grow with you. Thought about it, but they didn't believe in the mall model. But thought about it and actually spent one sleepless night, went back the next day and said, no, we will do malls. And I will not take the investment. Which is when I did the borrowing and did the mall. But that was again a game changer, because thousands of people walk into malls every day. You're building your brand in a different way, and it's such an interesting place to be. A bookstore. Our average browse time used to be 1.5 hours. So that Spencer store, I think, really changed the brand, because having succeeded there, the whole of Spencer Plaza changed because of landmark. It's 40,000 square feet, and the traffic we drew into that mall, we used to get about 20,000 people per day on weekends. Then we got offers of Forum, and we got great rental deals. We became the anchors in malls. So anchors always get great special deals. So I got like Forum in Bangalore was $22 a square foot, which was unheard of. But those things were spin-offs, but it requires a little strategy. So depending on the space you're in, you can actually be where your customer is. And I think that's brand building for me. And that's what built the brand, and then we moved into malls. Most of our stores are in malls. We have very few standalone stores because we got really good rental deals, we got traffic, and I think we got our valuation that way as well in the long run.
Does that answer your question? Mistakes, yeah, I would, if you ask me, I would say one mistake, like, Mark Twain said, after 20 years of being in business, you look back, you only regret the things you didn't do. You don't look at what you've achieved. One of the big regrets I think I have is every store used to cost me between 5 and 7 crores. Okay, all our stores were very large format after the first supermarket store. Between 5 and 7 crores, including inventory. If I had done, I thought of online. I started my online in 2000. Climb Up on the Net was in 2000. But I never really put big money into it. And I'm talking 2000, it's a long time ago. And we were getting a very good response. Again, we were able to get imports, no charge on freight. We never charged for everything. And it was fairly decent. But there was a limitation because we didn't promote the brand. What we needed to do was say, sacrifice one store, do one store less, put that 7 crores in that online. And I think the brand would have been a very, very different story. If you ask me the one regret, that is the one regret. But for me, I kept thinking that one more store in Delhi, another 35, 40,000 square feet, another 45, 50 crores of revenue. I didn't want to give that up for the online. And every time we were strapped for cash. We could only do one store at a time. We didn't have the money to do 2. So, if you ask me, that I think was, call it lack of vision or lack of prioritizing what we could have done. Just sacrifice one store for that 7 crores in online, I think would have taken us places, different places.
Thank you, Hemu. And ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for a wonderful panel.